The 1200s years ago would have been, we'd have laughed at it. And that's quite meaningful, because now there's a body of evidence building that it perhaps is the point of beginning of some endeavor here on the island to do something.
The Templar evidence from Season 13 of The Curse of Oak Island isn't built on one find or one theory. It's a convergence that fans cannot ignore, because 4 independent scientific methods keep landing on the same date range. Lead isotope analysis, carbon-14 dating, archaeoastronomy, and geological provenance have all pointed to the same window, 1200 to 1300 AD. For years, the Templar theory was easy to dismiss. A cross here, a stone pattern there, each one explainable on its own. After this season, the math changed. The cross that anchors everything.
The axis of the 3 churches would intersect with Oak Island.
It's excellent confirmation.
The lead cross from Smith's Cove has been the spine of the Templar argument since Gary Drayton pulled it from the shoreline mud. It's small, fits in the palm of your hand, hand-carved with rough edges and a square hole punched through the top, likely for suspension on a cord or chain. On its own, it's an unusual artifact, found in an unlikely place. Interesting, but not conclusive. Plenty of explanations could account for a single lead cross on a Nova Scotia shoreline. But when Tobias Skowronek at the German Mining Museum ran lead isotope analysis on the cross, the results went from unusual to extraordinary. Isotope ratios in lead function like a geological fingerprint. They can identify not just where the ore was mined, but when. Skowronek's analysis matched the lead to medieval mines in the Cevennes and Montagne Noire mountain ranges of southern France. The isotopic signature dated the material to between 900 and 1300 AD. Sit with that for a moment. Pre-15th century European lead from a documented mining region in France, sitting on a Nova Scotia island with no recorded European contact until 1795. The cross wasn't made from local material. It wasn't colonial. It came from a specific region of France during a specific window of history, and it ended up buried at Smith's Cove, thousands of miles from where its lead was pulled out of the ground. Jerry Glover, a Templar researcher, took the analysis in a different direction. He examined the cross's design and identified a resemblance to crucifixes carved into the stone walls of Dom prison, the fortress in southern France where arrested Templar knights were imprisoned after 1307. Glover also matched its form to a design carved into a pillar at a 13th century church in Whitchurch, England. Both sites carry documented Templar associations. The visual parallels are striking, though visual similarity alone can't prove who made the cross or why it ended up on Oak Island. What the cross does establish is a starting point. Medieval European lead, sourced from France, dated to the Templar era, found on an island in Mahone Bay. That was already a problem for the conventional timeline. Then Season 13 started stacking evidence on top of it. Written in the stars.
It seems like somebody was here, let's say from France, from the Talmont region of France, in the 1200s. They established a base of operations.
Professor Adriano Gaspani brought archaeoastronomy to Oak Island, and what he found may be the strongest structural argument for medieval construction anywhere on the island. It started with the octagonal stakes recovered from the swamp. 8-sided wooden survey stakes that don't match any known colonial surveying technique in the historical record. Gaspani analyzed their orientation and found that the northern blue group stakes align with the setting position of Deneb in the constellation Cygnus. That alignment isn't random. It's the same celestial reference encoded in Nolan's cross, the massive boulder formation Fred Nolan discovered decades ago and spent years arguing was a deliberate construction. Using axial precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis that shifts where stars appear over centuries, Gaspani calculated when those alignments would have been accurate. His answer, 1200 to 1300 AD. Not just for Nolan's cross, but for the stone triangle, the Lot 15 stone cairns, and the swamp stakes. 4 separate structures spread across different parts of the island, all encoding the same stellar positions, all dating to the same century. The odds of that happening by accident? 4 unrelated formations coincidentally reflecting the same narrow astronomical window are vanishingly small. Someone designed these structures with a shared celestial vocabulary. Then came the connection that shifted the entire conversation. Bianzano Castle in northern Italy is a confirmed Templar site, built and occupied by the order during the height of their power. Gaspani analyzed its construction and found that Bianzano shares the same Cygnus and Arcturus celestial references as Nolan's Cross, same stars, same encoding method, an ocean apart. Gaspani's conclusion was careful but pointed. Whoever designed Bianzano Castle and whoever placed the stones of Nolan's Cross belonged to the same cultural tradition. That's important language, and it's worth understanding exactly what it means and what it doesn't. It means the builders of both sites drew from the same astronomical knowledge base. In medieval Europe, that kind of specialized celestial knowledge circulated among monastic orders, military religious organizations, and elite navigational schools. It doesn't mean the Templars specifically built Nolan's Cross, but it does narrow the field of candidates to a very small group of medieval European organizations capable of encoding precise stellar data into monumental stone construction on both sides of the Atlantic. Separately, researcher Charlotte Wheatley identified 3 medieval churches near Talmont-sur-Gironde in France, arranged along a geographic line that points directly at Oak Island across the Atlantic. Gaspani confirmed those churches share stellar alignments: Sirius, the Pleiades, Hamal, with the round feature on Lot 5, which he dated to 1236 AD. Medieval French churches and a stone structure on Oak Island encoding the same stars oriented along the same axis, dating to the same period. That's not a coincidence anyone has managed to explain away. What the ground confirms.
You can see it's been bounced, it's been cut with an axe. You can see those bounces on that side there.
Well, one thing's for sure, that's exactly where it was.
Yeah.
The astronomical dating would be compelling on its own, but it doesn't stand alone. The physical evidence pulled from Oak Island's soil has been clustering in the same medieval window, tested by entirely different methods, in entirely different labs. Carbon-14 analysis of leather shoe fragments recovered from the swamp returned a primary date of 1148 through 1216 AD, with some readings extending as far back as 1047. Leather shoes in a Nova Scotia swamp dating to the 12th century, possibly the 11th. There's no conventional historical framework that accounts for that. No documented European expedition reached this part of the Atlantic that early. No known shipwreck explains it. No colonial activity would exist for another 500 years at minimum. The leather is just there, dated and unexplained, sitting in waterlogged soil on an island that supposedly had no visitors until the 1790s. Beneath the Lot 8 boulder, mortar bonding a man-made stone cradle was tested by Emma Cooligan and Dr. Ian Spooner. They placed it in a window from the post-1200s to the pre-1800s. The range is wide, roughly 6 centuries, and the upper bound extends well into the colonial era. But it's the lower bound that carries the weight. If that mortar dates to the 1200s, the stone cradle beneath the boulder was constructed during the medieval period, centuries before the Money Pit's traditional discovery. Centuries before anyone is supposed to have had a reason to visit a small island in Mahone Bay. And the lower bound aligns directly with the stellar dating, the carbon-14 leather, and the lead cross isotopes. The chemistry beneath the boulder added another layer. Lead concentrations in the soil measured 11 times the island baseline, migrating downward through strata of ash and coal. That chemical signature is consistent with smelting, the process of heating ore to extract metal. Somebody was working with metals beneath that stone, and the residue had centuries to sink through the earth. Then there are the stone shots, medieval cannonballs carved from volcanic rock. Geologist Robert Rayside traced the material to the Portuguese Azores. Archaeologist Laird Niven dated the type to the 14th and 15th centuries, before cast iron replaced stone as standard military ordnance. The Lisbon Military Museum confirmed Portuguese manufacture. Marty called it. He said he was 90% certain they were projectiles from the 1300s or early 1400s. These aren't theoretical connections or interpretive leaps. They're isotope results and museum confirmations and geological provenance data. Lab work, not legend. The stone shots are especially significant because they represent a completely different analytical method from the lead cross or the carbon-14 leather, geological composition, and artifact typology rather than dating chemistry. And they still point to the same conclusion: medieval European activity on an island where nobody is supposed to have been. The symbol in the war room. Every piece of evidence covered so far came from the ground or the sky, physical artifacts and stellar alignments. Season 13 also delivered a different kind of evidence. This one came from a map. Scott Clark, a 32nd degree Mason and researcher, presented a chain of connections he'd been assembling. On Charles Morris's 1762 map of Mahone Bay, Clark identified a stylized letter A with a distinctive V-shaped crossbar. When the line of that symbol is extended across the bay, it points directly at Oak Island. Clark then matched the identical symbol to the Titulus Crucis, a wooden tablet housed in Rome's Basilica of the Holy Cross, traditionally believed to have been placed above Jesus during the crucifixion. He traced the same A shape to carvings photographed at the Convent of Christ in Tomar, Portugal, the headquarters of the Order of Christ, which inherited the Templars' assets and mission after the order's suppression in 1312. The same symbol appeared on pentacles engraved into Portuguese Templar gravestones. Clark's conclusion was dramatic. A fragment of the true cross itself may have been carried across the Atlantic by the Order of Christ and buried on Oak Island. It's the kind of claim that sounds like conspiracy, until you remember that the Order of Christ was a real organization with real ships and real missions, headquartered at Tomar, with documented access to relics and documented maritime operations extending deep into the Atlantic. That said, Clark's chain still relies on visual pattern matching, symbol to symbol to symbol, rather than physical evidence linking the objects. No one has found a fragment of anything matching the Titulus Crucis on the island. The connection is interpretive, not material. But dismiss the conclusion and the underlying pattern remains. A medieval cartographic symbol pointing at Oak Island, the same symbol recurring in Portuguese Templar sites. Another thread connecting this island to medieval European organizations with documented ties to the Templars and their successors. Even as speculation, it doesn't exist in isolation anymore. It exists alongside isotope data, carbon dating, and archaeoastronomy, all aimed at the same target. The problem no one can solve. Strip away the drama, set aside the theories. Look at what Season 13 actually produced, method by method. Lead isotope analysis dates the Smith's Cove cross to 900 through 1300 AD and traces its material to southern France. Carbon-14 dates leather in the swamp to 1148 through 1216. Archaeoastronomical alignment dates Nolan's Cross, the swamp stakes, and multiple stone formations to 1200 through 1300 and connects their design to a confirmed Templar castle in Italy. Geological provenance traces stone cannonballs to the volcanic Azores and confirms Portuguese manufacture from the 1400s. Mortar analysis places construction beneath the Lot 8 boulder, somewhere in or after the 1200s. 5 analytical methods, 5 independent labs, and experts. None of them coordinating, none of them working from the same assumptions. And they all land in the same century on the same island. Skeptics raise legitimate objections. No artifact recovered from Oak Island bears explicit Templar insignia. No seal, no stamp, no engraved cross of the order. The Bianzano Castle parallel demonstrates shared astronomical knowledge, not organizational identity. The lead cross proves medieval French origin, not Templar manufacture. And the converging 1200 to 1300 window could reflect Portuguese exploration, independent medieval voyaging, or activity by a European group that has nothing to do with the Templars at all. The Order of Christ, the Templar successor in Portugal, remained active well into the 15th century, and Portuguese maritime reach extended far earlier than most histories acknowledge. Those are fair points, and they matter, but they don't resolve the central problem. One coincidence is easy to explain. 2 raise an eyebrow. 5 independent scientific methods all arriving at the same date range for a remote island in Nova Scotia. That's not a coincidence anymore. That's a pattern demanding an explanation, and nobody has offered one that accounts for all of the data without invoking some form of organized medieval European presence on Oak Island. The Templar theory may not be proven, but after Season 13, it's no longer the fringe idea it used to be. It's not a story built on wishful thinking or a single suggestive artifact. It's a hypothesis supported by convergent data from 5 independent scientific disciplines, each one blind to the others, each one arriving at the same medieval window on the same remote island. The evidence hasn't confirmed who was here. It has confirmed that someone was, centuries before anyone is supposed to have arrived. And the footprint they left behind is too consistent. across too many independent methods to keep waving away. Season 13 didn't prove Templars built what's buried on Oak Island. What it did was harder to dismiss. 5 independent lines of scientific evidence, all converging on the same medieval window. The theory has data behind it now, and that data keeps growing. For why Lot 8 may matter even more than the money pit, and what the team found when they finally lifted the boulder, watch it next.